Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. Time for episode 2 of Just Take 3 with me, Andrew Musgrove. And
Me, Sam Mulliner. Hello.
you good? You well?
Yeah, good. Enjoyed last week. But yeah, it is very difficult to narrow these selections down to three, and we've got an equally tricky one. I've got two so far. I think I'm gonna have to make up the third one ad hoc because I just can't narrow them down anymore.
But this is the beauty of this series. There is no right answer, and it's going to cause so much debate, but fun debate, which in the world of Newcastle United fans and social media, we need a bit of fun and lightheartedness in the world, don't we?
Yes, um, particularly when there's nothing really happening in the summer transfer window on a positive basis. So, I mean, look, we've had plenty of worse summers, but and I'm sure things will get sorted. Right wing and centre back, and hopefully centre forward as well. But yeah, why not? It's a distraction, isn't it? It's a
It is
distraction.
a fun distraction. Let me just remind you guys of how this all works. So you are on a desert island, and somehow, somewhere, you've got the ability to either watch or remember certain Newcastle United highlights, certain Newcastle United memories. And this week, it's all about wingers. Last week, it was goals. So me and Sam picked our 3 goals that we would take to this island to get us through the hardship of being deserted on this island. This week, it's wingers. As Sam's alluded to, they're very hard to narrow down to just 3 wingers. Again, picked on quality, picked on memories, picked on a whole host of things. And I'm sure when you guys are doing this at home, it'll be exactly the same for you. And that's a question I'm always going to ask you, Sam, at the beginning of this episode. How have you come to your choices? Is it based on pure quality alone? Is it based on maybe a goal they scored and that's why that player sticks in your mind? Is it because you were with someone on a special day and they did something amazing? How have you picked the wingers that you'd be taking with you on this desert island?
A bit of everything, really. Just one is a real personal favourite of mine. Another one is a person who has proved me wrong in like the best possible way. And the third one, I've got to narrow it down, and it's got to be in the back of my mind of how they make you feel when you're watching them play. Do they get you off your seat? Because that's the kind of mercurial talents that wingers are, especially nowadays. It was a bit differing to that in the old 4-4-2 days, where they were just basically right midfielders or left mids. So yeah, it's a bit of everything, really. How do you go about yours?
Yeah, it's a mixture of people I've seen. I've got one that I didn't see in person. He's the kind of Newcastle United player that I really wish I'd got to see in the flesh. That's more memories and being told about this person. And yeah, then just some of the goals that these wingers scored on a consistent basis. That's how they get into my list. But again, no right answer to this. Everyone will have different opinions, and that's why I think this series is going to be so much fun going forward because everyone's going to have different picks and different reasons for making those picks. And it's going to be fun. So let me set the scene then. You've landed on this desert island, and you're now going into the grass, the trees to try and find some food, maybe a little pig running about that you might have to
There's very
capture.
little grass on a desert island, hence the
Well,
name desert.
not like if you watch Castaway and you've got like the overgrown,
So maybe we should have chosen wingers that are good in a survival situation.
well, that's it. And you're now scurrying around trying to get, some resources, whether it be coconuts or water. And you've stumbled across a screen, tiny little thing in the overgrown grass or beside the tree. And you switch it on, and it's got the list of every single winger to play for Newcastle United. And with the sea rustling behind you, it flashes up and it says, you've got to delete all but 3, Sam. And
So it's not you're stuck on a desert island with them. So you can't say like, okay,
oh no, I mean that
Lauren
would be.
Robert could score 30-yard screamers, but can he build a shelter out
Oh
of
no, it's
a
just
palm
you
tree
stuck
and
on
some
this island.
sticks? Right. Okay.
It's just you stuck on this
That
island
changes everything.
because if we had because this series is going to run for a little while. I mean, you could, as you mentioned there, build up like the best survival team, the Bear Grylls XI. But no, it's about somehow you get to watch their memories, their highlight reels on this little tiny screen to try and distract you from imminent death and hunger at the very best. And,
Keep it light.
well, this is the scene. It's like Castaway, but with Newcastle United highlights.
Okay.
Make a Wilson joke quickly.
No.
No, okay.
It's too easy. I'll ignore that one. You can go first this week because I went first last week, and
Okay.
you've got something to prove.
Something to prove. It's not a competition, Sam. Not at all. I think my picks were much better last week. You didn't even have an Alan Shearer goal.
No, that's true.
That's like
It's
criminal.
bad, yeah. It just goes to show how difficult it is, isn't it?
My first choice, and it's not like I've asked Sam to order them 1, 2, 3, but I am going to say this is my first choice. It's Terry Hibbert. 258 appearances for Newcastle United, 13 goals and 16 assists. Played for Newcastle United over 2 spells, 1971 to 75, and then 78 to 81. And he is the one player above anyone else that I wished I got to see in person. And we've had George Robledo, we've had Jackie Milburn, we've had a host of absolutely fantastic players, Joe Harvey, Frank Brennan. I could go on, but for me, Terry Hibbert is the one who, if I could just have seen in his prime, I'd be such a happy Newcastle United supporter. And it's come from listening to stories, reading tales, watching highlights, talking to John Gibson, who was a good pal of his, talking to Malcolm MacDonald. And I've got a few quotes from Malcolm about Terry to bring you guys, just to kind of reaffirm why, for me, he's probably the best Newcastle United winger ever. And I don't think anyone's come close to him. And you might say, well, you never got to see him in person, so how can you make that judgment? But I'm going off people's opinions like Malcolm MacDonald and like Frank Clark, two of Newcastle's finest ever players. And if they make the point that Newcastle United haven't had a better winger since Terry Hibbert and they played with him, and that's good enough for me. And then, like I say, you watch the highlights and you watch the way he passed the ball. And we've seen the likes of Yohan Cabaye, we've seen the likes of Bruno Guimaraes in recent times. But if you watch Terry Hibbert's passing ability, it is something else. Signed for £30,000 from Leeds United by Joe Harvey. And Malcolm tells a story that Joe came into the dressing room and said, I've got the man who's going to make the bullets for you to fire, and then just walked out. And Malcolm and the rest of the squad were left kind of in awe, thinking what a deal this would be. And I think what most people remember Terry for will be that pass against Burnley in the FA Cup semi-final at Hillsborough. Malcolm MacDonald's second goal of the game. There's a corner cleared out to what we're talking, maybe 30, 40 yards in Newcastle's own half. And Terry Hibbert, first time pass, kind of a half volley pass, 30, 40 yards up the pitch to Malcolm MacDonald, brings it down, shrugs the defender off and puts it in at the back of the net. It is one of the best goals that you will ever see for Newcastle United. And we talk about assists, we talk about Joe Willock's pass against Spurs for Isak. We talked about Alexander Isak's assist for Jacob Murphy. There's a Yohan Cabaye assist against, I want to say, West Ham when Leon Best got the hat-trick, I think it is. Or was it against Stoke? It was against Stoke, wasn't it? And anyway,
Tiotes for Bar, like we discussed last week as well.
Yeah, we've seen some great passes of the ball. And no doubt we'll have to take 3 passes with her in the coming weeks to this island. And this one will be on that list for me. It's absolutely tremendous. And for our younger viewers who haven't seen it, just go on to YouTube, type in Newcastle versus Burnley FA Cup. You will see the pass. It is an unbelievable pass. And Malcolm MacDonald told me a few years ago, because I did an article celebrating Terry Hibbert. It was through lockdown. I was lucky enough to speak to the likes of Supermark and the likes of Frank Clark for it. And he says, when people ask who is the best passer I've played with, it's Terry Hibbert. And you cannot get a bigger compliment than that. One of the best number 9s this club's ever had. One of the best goal scorers England has ever produced. And he says, the best pass of the ball I've played with, Terry Hibbert. And by all accounts, if we were taking these guys on the island with her, he'd be a laugh, because he was a good laugh, was Terry. He was a bit of a wind-up merchant. The saying is he could start a fight in an empty room, so that would be quite interesting when you were stuck on an island with him. But in terms of his footballing ability, what a player. Absolutely fantastic. So when we're talking about wingers, he has set the bar. And I don't think anyone has maybe they've come close to it, but I don't think anyone surpassed him.
I've got to be honest. I'm really, really pleased. You've mentioned Terry Hibbert, because he obviously entered my calculation, but I sort of didn't feel right in waxing lyrical about him, because all I really know of him was I had a VHS when I was younger of Newcastle United history game. I can't even remember what it was called now. But it shows all the early FA Cup wins, the ones in the 50s, and the ones before then as well, in like early kind of black and white images from start of the last century. And the key kind of component of the video as well is that cup run in '74, where he was obviously prominent alongside Supermax. So that's, and obviously the pass in the semi-final, as you rightly mentioned there. Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. And like, I've heard things over the years saying, like, yeah, again, he was like one of our, if not the greatest Newcastle United player. But for me, on the personal level, I didn't feel comfortable kind of waxing lyrical about him and picking him for myself. So I'm really, really pleased you have, because yeah, he's an absolute legend, and maybe not celebrated enough, I would say.
I don't think he is celebrated enough, but I think it's to do with the time that's gone by, the world we're living in now, where every single great pass or tackle is clipped up. Back then, it was all about goals, really. I think it's just a sign of the times. It's a little bit like Joe Harvey, and people know my viewpoint that he gets a little bit disrespected, I think. And it's just simply because of the years that have gone by. And with every generation, there's new heroes. And unfortunately, as time goes by, the people who watched the likes of Joe Harvey play, the likes of Joe Harvey manage, and watched, Terry Hibbert, they pass on, and maybe the stories haven't been passed down, but there'll always be a new hero. And I think with Terry, for so many people, he probably was the most exciting player they'd seen. And then when you throw him in with Malcolm McDonald, it was a partnership that you just must have loved going to watch every single week, because those two just connected. Again, Malcolm calls him kind of the exception, because he knew what Malcolm wanted with every single ball. People would say sometimes it's an overhead pass, but Malcolm would turn around and say, that's not an overhead pass. That's the ideal pass for me. And Terry Hibbert knew exactly what to do. Put a little bit too much on it, but you're backing Malcolm McDonald to pick up the speed and sprint in when no one else is going to get there. And that's, that was the partnership that worked so well. He deserves huge respect because he has set the bar. And I would, really encourage people to watch the highlights, to read a little bit around him. I'll put the link to the article that I wrote about him in the comments, so you can have a little look at that. But just ask
You write articles?
I do, back in the day. But
Wow.
you can, just ask your dad, your grandparents about Terry Hibbert, and he was actually sold in not the best of circumstances. It was a very surprising exit to Birmingham in '76. Gordon Lee, if I'm not mistaken, and he was just kind of told that was it, which left a very bad taste in the mouths of quite a lot of fans and the players at the time. And then it was no surprise when he came back in '78 and made another 90 appearances for the club. And then he went on to play for the likes of Gateshead and stuff, and unfortunately died of cancer, aged just 46, which is a horrendous, age to die. But there's a lovely story that John Gibson tells in his book Gibbo's Files, where Terry was in hospital and there was a little lad, in the next ward and what have you. And Terry, despite being very ill, got up into the corridor and had a kickabout with this little lad. And you just think, at this point, Terry was not very well at all, but he made that little lad's day by just having a kick around with him in his hospital gown in the corridor. And he was a really nice gentleman by all accounts from people you talk to. And I know we're basing this on football and ability, but that counts for a lot as well. It's always nice that these stars can be quite modest and take the time for essentially the people who pay their wages, isn't it? And Terry, by all accounts, is one of those nice people who didn't let the success go through his head. So he's first choice for me on my list of the wingers that I would like to take to this desert island to be able to watch the highlights reel.
Yeah, I'm really pleased. I'm really pleased you've chosen him, to be honest. Obviously, I've got it's hard to follow that one. So which one do I pick? I suppose I'll roll in nicely to another person who had 2 spells at Newcastle. Then I'm choosing Nobby Solano.
I've got him on my list as well, and I'm not
Have
going to
you
change
really?
it. I'm not changing it. He's staying on my list, and I'll explain why. But yeah, for me, Nobby, he fits into that category as well, doesn't he? He's such a nice guy, brilliant player, but
Yeah,
he's just such a lovely bloke as well.
yeah, and obviously I'm so lucky with what I do with Newcastle Fans TV and whatnot, and I've got to know Nobby a little bit down the years. I interviewed him 4 or 5 times now. Yeah, just absolute sweetheart. He really is. He's one of the nicest people you'll ever come across. But yeah, not detracting from that. What an amazing footballer he was. Just signed as an unknown, really, wasn't he? But what a player! And I love it as well because people think it's a criticism, especially when when I analysed some of Harvey Barnes's appearances for Newcastle on NFTV. People think I'm criticising him when I say I don't think he's that quick. It's not a criticism; it's just an observation. You don't have to be quick. Nobby told me because Nobby wasn't the quickest. Is my point, and he'll tell you that himself. But like he said to me, the first 2 yards are in your head. And having a good football brain makes the world of difference. And he had a fantastic football brain. Yeah, obviously his peak of his powers were in that famous Sir Bobby Robson team, but look, he was with us long before then, and obviously having that second stint at the club as well. When you think, well, can he still do it? And then he scores amazing goals against Arsenal and Everton, and yeah, just a fabulous football player, and yeah, one of my absolute favourites growing up, and yeah, just scored some fantastic goals as well. I always remember him as well in that amazing game at Ellen Road against Leeds, scoring the penalty against Sunderland. Yeah, just an incredibly talented player, and how many assists did he provide for Alan Shearer over the years? I know Shearer used to love playing with Nobby. Yeah, he's one of my all-time favourites.
Well, we talked about Sumac and Terry Hibbert and the compliment that Malcolm paid for Terry Hibbert. Alan Shearer has paid similar compliments to Norberto Solano, describing him as the best crosser he ever played with, because he was just unbelievable with his ability to pick Shearer out every single time. We know the stories about Shearer and Ginola maybe not putting the ball in the box as often or as quick as he would like, but there was no issue with Solano. He knew exactly what he had to do. I'll get the ball in the box, you do the rest. And it was another dream partnership winger striker. And, altogether, Solano got 48 assists for Newcastle United in 315 appearances. Sorry, he got 78 assists, in 315 appearances. He got 48 goals. 78 assists is a huge number. And it would be so interesting if we could get that now down to Shearer goals. But, 78 assists, that must be up there. Is one of the highest ever for Newcastle United. A tremendous player. And you've already mentioned some of the goals he scored. Down against, like you see, that win against Leeds at Ellen Road, I was in the away end for one of them. The one he scored in the last minute, was it? Yeah, that was the one I was in the away end for, my first away game.
The 4-3.
Yeah, the 4-3 one. Tremendous. And did he do similar against Derby as well at Pride Park, if I'm not mistaken? I'm sure. I remember Luala scored very late on.
Yeah.
But then I'm sure Nobby, did he get the assist that game? I'm sure he scored. I'm sure he scored very late on.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, like you say, important goals, great attitude, and just a, like we say, tremendous person. But you can't look past his crossing ability, like
No.
his from a dead ball, but also like running onto it and picking the right pass. There's no wonder Shearer compliments him as much and as often as he does, because we talk about Terry Hibbert setting the bar. If anyone's come close to him, it's probably Norberto Solano in terms of the service provided to the strikers.
Yeah, I mean, like nowadays as well, like it's all about being like an inverted winger, and you're playing on the opposite wing of where your strong foot is to kind of come across, cut inside. But I think, like, I would love to see Nobby in our team now playing right wing.
He could
Just
probably play as a wing back as well, couldn't he? Because he played a
yeah,
couple of times doing that for Newcastle.
yeah, he did. He'll do whatever is required. That's so great about his attitude. But there's a lot to be said for getting to the byline, whipping a ball in. Yeah, it's just you can't praise him highly enough because he was so pivotal in that Sir Bobby team, and there was some great players around him, but he was always a mainstay um, in that side when players. Some great players, but like Kieran Dyer, very injury prone. Genus and Gary Speed, of course, in the middle. Robert on the other side. Um, Nobby was a kind of linchpin in all of that, and he was so reliable.
I've got the stats here. So Nobby Solano is top when it comes to Newcastle United assists in the Premier League, 54 assists. Alan Shearer second with 36, Rob Lee 31, and Lovren Robert 29. Peter Beardsley and Kieran Dyer joined on 26 to round up the top five. So there you go. Not only top, but top by some way. And if you're looking for a name who's played recently, you go down to Matt Ritchie in eighth with 18 Premier League assists. So I'm a little way for maybe Anthony Gordon or Harvey Barnes, as you mentioned, to catch up to Nobby. What a fantastic number that is, 54 assists, and it's going to take some beating that. And I remember Nobby being sold, which again came as a massive surprise, headed down to Aston Villa. And then I remember when Michael Owen signed and the Leaders End was packed out, Michael Owen getting unveiled, and everyone just started chanting for Norberto Solano. And the day later, he was back on Tyneside, and the power of the people. But that showed you just how much Newcastle United fans wanted him back at the club. They felt there was unfinished business, and he came back. And as you said, in that time, in his second spell, scored some fantastic goals.
Yeah, still just
The
as
Arsenal
good.
one stands out.
Yeah, still just as good. I mean, like wingers, particularly nowadays, they have this kind of reputation of when they're good, they're unstoppable, but they can often go missing for a couple of games here and there. But no, Nobby never did. Really consistent, really great attitude, and yeah, I was over the moon when he came back because I didn't like him being sold. I was a bit annoyed James Milner had to go on loan the other way because I don't think James Milner actually did enter my calculations really for these because I loved James Milner at that time, and it was just a player that we never got anything out of because I think he was treated like crap at Newcastle, to be honest. And look, he's gone on to have an amazing career. And fair play to him, but Bobby obviously saw something to sign him as a 16, 17-year-old from Leeds. And yeah, I don't think we ever got the best out of him for what is a tremendous player. But yeah, Nobby is my number one, and yeah, I love him to bits.
Yeah, I think everyone does. And I've been lucky enough to work with him quite a bit over the last couple of years, and he's just so modest and down to earth.
Yeah,
He's stopped all the time for autographs and photographs, and he will sign and take every photograph that anyone asks for. And he's just such a lovely bloke. And he could be, let's be honest, not such a lovely bloke because of his standing. And you always do worry about meeting heroes and if they are going to be a bit arrogant because of how much they are loved. You know, they can get what they want, sort of thing. But he's just so down to earth, and he's at times it's like he's a little bit embarrassed by his standing in many ways. Like he doesn't feel like he deserves it. He doesn't quite understand the
Yeah,
love for him.
yeah. I kind of think that like like after when like the first time I interviewed him, I'm thinking kind of like, do you know, like, are you even aware of just like how like of how much of a legend you are? Yeah, very very humble, very very down to earth, and look, and that goes to show he's taken the job at Blythe. You know, he could have bided his time and he could have got a first team coaching job somewhere in the football league, but no, he wants to do it on his own. He's not. There's no ego involved. He's willing to put the graft in, and tough little pre-season so far for Blythe, but I hope he excels there.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Wish him all the best in his new role at Blythe Spartans. So that was my second choice, Norberto Solano. So I'll go on to my third choice, and it is Lauren Robert, and it's a testament really to what Sir Bobby Robson created at that time, where you had Nobby on one side, Solano on the other, Shearer up top, and you had both these wingers just providing the goods for Alan Shearer. I mean, Shearer must have been an absolute dreamland with both these wingers. Like I say, with Robert, he's fourth in the list of Newcastle's all-time assists provider in the Premier League with 29. He got 54 overall, 32 goals, a goal scorer of great goals. I mean, you watch his highlights reel, and I did just before we came on air. I could watch it another 4 or 5 times today. Like the goals he scored are absolutely fantastic. But again, more than anything, just a great crosser of the ball. And Alan Shearer, as I say, must have just been rubbing his hands with every Saturday with the prospect of having these two guys on either wing.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a big contributing factor as to why Bobby saved Shearer's career, really. Playing within the confines of the 18-yard box, what else do you need to do when you've got those two on either wing, supplying you with fantastic crosses? Yeah, wonderful left foot. What can you say about him? So Bobby obviously found an absolute gem in him. I think he was the only player he signed for over £10 million in the whole of
Oof,
his
that's a
tenure,
claim. That is
which
something I have to fact check that one, but if that's true, that's quite something.
Um, I'm fairly confident he was 10.5 mil, and
He was.
there wasn't another signing to Bobby Robson made for Newcastle over £10 million. Which, when you think about it, is crazy.
That is, yeah.
Because
Bellamy's 6
Woodgate
million.
was 9. I think Viana was 8.5. Genus
Carl
was
Court was
7.
8. So yeah, you're
Yeah,
probably
there was.
right.
Yeah, Woodgate was the one that came closest with 9. But yeah, when you think about that, it was actually Mark Robson, Bobby Robson's son, when we had him on the Greenwood and Mulliner show, who told myself and Johnny that, and then I kind of stopped. Like I had the same reaction as you, and then you stop and think. You think, Jesus, didn't even realise. So the way Bobby built this team with only one player costing more than £10 million is a testament to Robert William Robson, really. But yeah, Lauren Robert just. Oof,
Didn't track back very often. Didn't have that defensive
no,
kind of
but
ability. But what he
it didn't
did
matter.
going
But that's
forward,
what Gary Speed was for. That's what Gary Speed was for. He would cut inside and help Ollie Bernard out. Same as what kind of Joe Linton was then having to do. When Maxi was on the left hand side, or maybe even now with Gordon. But yeah, that wasn't his forte.
but you see, that's the difference there, though, isn't it? Like you can accept the lack of tracking back when the end product is there.
Yeah,
You had it with Ginola to a certain extent. You had it with Robert, where you didn't mind so much if the opposition could hit on the counter quickly, and he was busy standing with his hands on his hips on the edge of the box, not doing out, because you knew going forward, more often than not, he'd either score or he'd provide an assist. And maybe that was Max's downfall, where he didn't have that end product enough
Correct.
which made you kind of forget about the lack of defensive product.
Mm. I mean, Maxi did track back more than Lauren Roberto to kind of defend Maxi a little bit, but I think that was overhyped a little bit. He did actually track back a lot more than what he was perceived to have done. But yeah, Lauren Roberto definitely didn't. But yeah, it just worked, didn't it? It just worked. And like you say, I always remember, aside from like the obvious wonder strikes, like performances like Arsenal away, at Highbury to go top at Christmas. He was fantastic that night. Plenty of the European games and the UEFA Cup. He was majestic. It's a shame how it ended. Like a lot of those players in that time with Graham Souness and whatnot. But yeah, he was a player to behold, because I suppose with him on the pitch, you always felt like you had a chance because he could just pull something out of absolutely nothing.
Great with a free kick. I mean, when he hit a ball, it stayed hit. He had free kicks against Southampton, against Manchester United from distance as well. And the way the ball travels on these, when you watch the goals back, absolutely fantastic. And I've got a few goals written down, and people will have their own favourite Lovren Robert goal. But you have the double against Spurs at St James's Park. You have that Man United free kick, Southampton free kick, as I mentioned. The goal against Fulham,
Scorpion kick thing.
yeah, which was not very Lovren Robert-esque at all, but
No.
great skill.
What was he doing in the box?
Exactly. Smashing left foot, but there's a game against Arsenal where he scores a double at St James's Park, and the first goal is a right foot shot. He's running through the middle, brings it down, and he hits it with his right in the bottom corner. And I didn't even realise that. I mean, that's a collector's piece. That right foot finish from Lovren Robert, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Have you got a favourite Lovren Robert goal that stands out for you?
Oh my god! Again, how do that could be a topic one week.
Yeah.
Just trying to narrow Lauren Robert goals down to 3. Oh my word, that is tricky. One. Again, that like, I could give you an answer now, and the answer would be different tomorrow. It's one. So at the moment, I would the one that springs to mind was probably the second of the 2 against Spurs. But again, that could easily change tomorrow and next week. So again, that's it's a ridiculous question because there's no really right or wrong answer, I suppose.
No, you're correct, and it's the kind of running theme with these. Well, the first 2 episodes we've done here, where the answer could change within 5 minutes of the answer we give you, because there's so many options to pick from. And Lovren Robert, a score of absolutely fantastic goals. Ollie Bernard remembers him maybe for something slightly different, a whack to the face, short distance, which knocked him out cold. I mean, that probably still stings. But them two still in touch. I think they were. I was speaking to Ollie Bernard not too long ago, and he went out of Paris to see Lovren Robert, and they say they always have a laugh about that because it's what they get asked about the most.
Yeah, Ollie always says
foot to the
that.
face.
Yeah, he's not sick to death of people mentioning it, but I don't think it's far off.
Well, if he had a pound for every time he gets asked it, he'd be a very, very rich man. But when you look at the rest of like the who maybe made it onto my list, I had Alan Maximum down, and I very nearly picked him. But I just thought, if you're on a desert island and you've got more than enough to be frustrated about, the fire goes out, it rains when you don't want it to rain, and when it does rain, it comes down very, very hard. Or you can have enough water to survive. You're very hungry. You don't want to be watching highlights reels of Maxi, because all you'd be thinking about is, oh my God, the potential of this guy. And he just never reached the height he should have done in a black and white shirt. And I think it just
I'd
makes
put Ben Arthur in that category then.
Exactly. But it just makes you stay even more frustrated. You want a distraction, but a good distraction, not a what might have been. So that's the reason Maxi didn't get on my list. I had David Ginola down, but he wasn't here long enough, I don't think, for me to put him above the 3 I picked. I had Anthony Gordon down because I love watching him. I think he's absolutely fantastic the way he gets the ball and just wants to go forward and runs the players. He's got absolutely no fear. He's very direct. So he's on the Nelly list. And Keith Gillespie as well. If we're talking about someone who could cross a ball like the best of them, he's up there. That game against Barcelona was just his best performance in black and white, but he was as good as some of the players we've mentioned when it comes to delivery of a cross. Was Keith Gillespie?
Yeah. I've got two to provide then, haven't I now? A lot of what you've said there are ones that that entered my calculations as well, especially Keith Gillespie. Like I said last week, I maintain his performance against Barcelona was one of the single greatest individual performances I've seen in a Newcastle United shirt. Go back and just really analyse that game. The cross for the third goal, even in fact, what he did for that third goal, his run started from the edge of our own penalty area. He then obviously beats Sergei, not for the first time that game, pegs it into their half, and then delivers an absolute mind-blowing cross right on Tino Aspria's head for the hat-trick. Absolute worldy. And it just makes it so easy. And stuff like that is really often overlooked, which annoys me because, all right, it's basics, but when someone does the basics so well, just putting a cross in. But when it's done so well, it's just a thing of absolute beauty. So yeah, Keith Gillespie entered my calculations. Ben Arthur and Maxi, yes, they did amazing things in a Newcastle United shirt, but could they have done more? Absolutely. Loved watching them both. They were so exciting to watch. They'd get you off your seat every time. They made you feel alive when you're watching them. My second choice though was Anthony Gordon. Simply because he's proved me wrong, and I love being proved wrong because it often means something brilliant has happened. And I thought I didn't see why at the time, I didn't see why we were going in for him. I didn't see why we were paying so much for him. I just didn't understand why. When he signed, obviously has my full support because he's wearing the black and white shirt. But I couldn't fathom why they went in so hard for him, and how wrong I was. I reckon there's probably a few people like that, to be fair, because it was again becoming a bit of a nearly man. Showed glimpses for Everton, but nothing really on a consistent basis. Was a horrible little rat of a thing when he used to play against us. And obviously, the infamous incident with Trippier and Cher and all that in his final game for Everton against Newcastle before he joined us. But yeah, this season, and there was glimpses shown when he first signed. It was great to get the monkey off his back on the final day of the previous season at Chelsea when he just got a goal. Didn't matter because he was struggling, but it didn't matter. He just got that monkey off his back. And then this season, world class. Not just in terms of for the things he does, but the end product. There's goals and assists at the end of it. It's all very well doing, what Maxi did and what Ben Arthur did, but there wasn't really goals at the end of it on a consistent basis. Yes, when they scored, it was obviously a collector's item. But, consistent end product for Anthony Gordon, incredible, which is why he made my list. Simple as that. Should have got more minutes of the Euros. He'll obviously be an England regular at some point if he carries on that form. Hope we offer him a new deal and get him tied down to a big long-term contract because that's what he deserves. Love his attitude, which was questionable when at Everton. From the outside looking in, we didn't really have a real grasp of his mindset then. But yeah, I think as a fan base, we've absolutely grown to absolutely adore him, and rightly so. He's been incredible.
He has, and I agree with you. At the time of him signing, I had concerns about the attitude and the way it ended at Everton, and also it didn't feel like a priority position for Newcastle United, but clearly someone they liked, and the option came up to get him at that point, and they thought, right, we'll go for him, which is refreshing. That they're not kind of just got that tunnel vision of this position is top of the list. That's where we need to be going. It is kind of reactionary to the market. If a player that they like and have scouted and think is good enough comes up for availability, if there's money in the pot to get them at that time, then they'll do that, which is really good that they're fluid in the situation. Yeah, he had a difficult start of life, and obviously we all remember the Brentford situation. And like you say, I think the Chelsea goal was so important for him. And then he went away to the Euros with the under 23s, under 21s, and was absolutely tremendous.
Player of the tournament.
Yeah, and you always felt though that with a full pre-season under his belt with Eddie Howe, we would get to see the best of him. I don't think everyone was that convinced that would happen, but myself and Aaron, we said at the end of the season, before the last season, give him a full summer with Eddie Howe, and you will see just why they splashed 40-odd million on him. And probably helped, you would say, maybe by the injury to Harvey Barnes. And I know they tend to play on different wings, but that probably helped him, because I think there was some debate to whether Harvey Barnes would come in and Gordon would be on the bench, and he'd be the one coming off the bench to replace Barnes should it be needed. And obviously Barnes got injured and kind of helped Anthony Gordon nail down a place. But then Gordon had to produce the goods to keep that place, because you had Jacob Murphy, you had Miguel Almiron, and you know I know Elliot Anderson ended up getting injured, but you had other options to play out on the flank. And Gordon just went from strength to strength. Newcastle's player of the season last season, deservedly called up to the England squad. Shamefully didn't get anywhere near enough minutes under Gareth Southgate. Hopefully that changes under whoever the new manager is. But I just love watching. I mean, the games against Man City, he's particularly impressed me. He scored, didn't he? Was it the first goal he scored in the last game against City? When he took Kyle Walker. Second one, he took Kyle Walker to the cleaners, didn't he? And cut inside and hit it. I just love his direct. He just always wants to go for it. Always wants to go forward. Always looking to take the team forward. He's got drive about him. Great attitude. Great work rate as well. Listens to the instructions. So much energy about him. I hope Newcastle give him a good deal. I don't think it'll be too far away from that being kind of confirmed. They need to build the team around him. He's one of those components alongside Bruno and Isak where you've got the foundations there. Keep him happy, be ambitious, bring in players of his level, and Newcastle United will have no bother qualifying for Europe next season. He's an absolutely tremendous player. He really, really is. And I'm just happy that he's silenced the doubters. If we'd been sitting here last summer and the links to Liverpool had come up, I don't think too many people would have been, or not the same amount of people would have been kicking off at any link to Liverpool. Whereas this time, quite rightly, people do not want Anthony Gordon to leave. They want a hands-off approach. He's stopping, and thankfully that looks like that's going to be the case for Newcastle United. They don't want to sell him. And I think the reaction that we've seen when those links popped up is down to his hard work. He's turned it around at Newcastle, and not only turned it around, he's just gone up and up and up and up, and it's only going to get better as well. That's the exciting thing. He's only going to get better, and hopefully it is at Newcastle United.
Yeah. Nothing more to add on that, really. Just hope he stays for a long time to come. My kind of third one was, again, I so many to choose from. Jonas Gutierrez entered my calculations. In the end, I've gone for one that's probably
Fabrice Pancras?
No, it's not Fabrice Pancras. It's not Tovan. It's not Cabela. It's not Sammy Amiobi. But it's probably someone who's probably ability-wise the weakest out of all the players we've mentioned. I'm going for Matt Ritchie.
Okay.
Simply because I think he is the most important player from the past. And I've said this before on here. I've said it on Newcastle Fans TV till I'm blue in the face. He is the most important Newcastle United player of the past decade, bar none.
That's a claim and a half, that.
He just, on and off the pitch, given that dressing room at a time where we were rock bottom. We were awful. After the obviously the crap with the ownership, the crap with McLaren, Rafa coming in, obviously the relegation, and then he was the kind of big signing of that summer, really, wasn't he? When everyone was going, Wijnaldum, Sissoko, well, obviously the big two, and then the kind of big two coming in was Matt Ritchie and Dwight Gale, I suppose you would say. Matt Ritchie dragged us up in some games, dragged us to win in what was a very, very tough championship season. Very, very tough. Didn't Blackburn finish bottom of the league that season and they did the double over us?
I'll take your word on it. I can't remember quite off the
They were
top of my head.
definitely down there, but they did the double over us anyway. They 100% did the double over us. We had some shocking performances as a whole, because the championship, although we've been down there twice in recent history, and we've won it both times, and without showing the true reflections of the season, made it look easy, but they are tough slogs. And Matt Ritchie was so pivotal in that championship winning season. A couple of 1-0 victories where he got the goal. And then not only that, when we did get up, played such a pivotal role in keeping us up. One of the very few voices in that dressing room to show any form of leadership, along with Jamal Lascelles. Scored so many vital goals, winners against Man United, winners against Arsenal at home, to keep us up. Because, again, we even finished like 10th in that first season coming up, which was ridiculous under Rafa, because it was looking pretty grim halfway through the season and 2/3 way through the season, and then switching to kind of left wing back and doing what's told of him there. And then obviously when times are good again, not getting the game time, but still being such an influential character in that dressing room. Obviously, like, Bruno's paid testament to him in the past. And we mentioned Anthony Gordon at Brentford. You mentioned that. Matt Ritchie was so instrumental in diffusing that situation and keeping Anthony Gordon's head on. So important. And then even up to his kind of last days at the club, a last-minute equaliser at home to Bournemouth. Great. And then he has that kind of cult following because of corner flag kicking. He's got everything. Again, like, I'd hold my hands up and say he's out of all the 6 players we've talked about, 5, because we've shared one. We've talked about, he's probably the weakest on ability, on all round ability, but still had an absolute wand of a left foot, by the way, and kind of a no frills. What you see is what you get. If you had a team, like the old cliche, if you had a team of Matt Ritchies, when it comes to commitment and endeavour and hard work, graft, nitty gritty, getting down to it, you would do very, very well. I can't praise him enough. And, I think he's been so important as that first step of getting us out of the mire, keeping us out of the mire, and then passing the torch on to this group of players now that have taken the next step and, brought us back to the kind of good times. But yeah, Matt Ritchie, cannot praise him enough.
I never thought you'd have Matt Ritchie on your list, but I can't argue with anything that you've said. His attitude is just something else. Newcastle have lost a real leader in that dressing room with his departure. Right time for him to go, and he'll still do a decent enough job, I think, somewhere in the Championship, probably. But they will have a void to fill because his attitude sets the bar for the players around him. His efforts in training sets the bar again. He wanted 100% from himself, but 100% from absolutely everyone around him. And hopefully, even though he's gone, that's his legacy.
Yeah.
The bar's been set in terms of effort and commitment to the football club. And I always tell the story about sitting in the press box and he was injured or he wasn't in the squad. And it was just a preseason friendly, but he was sitting a couple of seats behind and you could hear him kicking every single ball. I mean, he was physically kicking the back of the box every
That
time
doesn't
the ball
surprise
went.
me. That's the
And
character he is.
Yeah, you could hear him bawling instructions and directions and pointing and gesturing. I think he'll make a very good coach, if not manager, one day.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely tremendous attitude, kicked every single ball, committed to the club, never let the side down. As you say, probably not the best ability-wise, especially out of the other ones we've mentioned, but you could never fault his effort. And he still had end product. As you mentioned, some of the
yeah.
goals he scored, his ability to put the ball in the box as well and to assist. And
Volley away at Bournemouth as well, just absolute textbook. And a point I forgot to add, so I have to do it now. On a personal level, the commitment he's shown Newcastle when his family moved. So obviously, when he signed, they moved up to the northeast. I don't think his wife and kids. I think they preferred life like down the New Forest and on the south coast. They moved back. Matt Ritchie, no transfer request, so we need to move. Family's not happy. He commutes from the south coast. He commuted for a couple of seasons, and a lot of that goes unnoticed. The commitment he's shown to Newcastle United over the years is just mind blowing. This was the one I struggled for a third one, but I'm so pleased that I've gone with Matt Ritchie in the end. Just what a man.
Yeah, can't argue with you on that. Well, there you have it. Episode 2 of Just Take 3. And this week we focused on wingers. On My Desert Island Comes With Me, highlights reel of Terry Hibbert, Norberto Solano and Lovren Robert. On Sam's, he's gone for Norberto Solano, Matt Ritchie, and remind me of the other one?
Running down the wing makes the Geordie sing.
Anthony Gordon?
Correct.
There we go. I want to know who you would pick. Get into the comments on YouTube. Give the video a thumbs up, but do get in touch via email, the EIBW podcast at reachplc.com. We'd love to hear your picks. Do leave us a comment on YouTube. Do share the pod amongst your Newcastle United supporting friends and family. And head over to chroniclelive.co.uk for all the latest Newcastle United news. Me and Sam will be back next week on our desert island with a new category. We do look forward to seeing you guys then.